Well, hello again, and welcome back to the Cheers to Comics podcast. I'm your host, Brian Wayne.
And this is a super special edition of Creator Corner. And this time I have David M. Booher on the line to talk about, well, pretty much everything, but specifically something that really took me by surprise, and that's Canto. What's up, David?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, I'm excited. I've been waiting for the right moment to ask you to come on. I was specifically waiting for the in between 5 and 6 thing to maybe see if I could find some way to coax some information out of you. But we'll talk about that later. You weren't. I wasn't supposed to say that out loud. But I mean that's why we're drinking here too. You know, they say it's truth juice. So we'll see what I can get out of you.
Yeah. I'm excited to be broken down by your interrogation.
Well, you know.
Ah,
The main part or the main purpose of this for any new listeners out there, this is a creator quarter segment. I like to bring in these creators that, they're the responsible for anytime there's a big movie out there and it's based off of a comic book. It started through a writer that put out a comic. They wrote the comic book. So I don't feel like there's enough recognition for these content creators, the ones that the ideas originated from. So especially when it comes to indie books, get it while it's hot these days, because everything right now is just, the market wants it all. There's these indie creators are coming out of the woodworks, and I'm loving it. And you and David Zucker have
Drew
killing
Zucker.
killing it. Or I'm sorry, Drew Zucker. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notepad here and read your name. Yeah, Drew Zucker. You guys are killing it right now with Canto.
Oh, thank you. You talk about this all these indie books just being snapped up. There was that Undiscovered Country that was announced that it was options, I think, before the first issue was even out.
Yeah,
So it's just like a feeding frenzy out there right now.
it really is. The book "You Are Obsolete" came out a couple weeks ago, and it was. I mean, I think it was a movie deal before it was a comic book. I'm not sure exactly how it went, but the fact that yes, there was a movie deal that was announced days after the comic book release or days before. It's is all the more reason. Yes, you have to. It's really validating the fact that comic books are so much more than or Batman and Superman and Iron Man and all of that stuff. These big $1 trillion budget movies that we're so used to
Sure.
seeing. You got little
Yeah.
characters like Canto just fucking chugging along, man.
just waiting for that opportunity. And I've thought a lot about this. The last book I did before this was something with Vault called Alien Bounty Hunter.
Yeah, I was
Um,
looking into this. This automatically intrigues me. You're gonna. I was. This is definitely something I wanted you to touch on. So please tell
yeah,
me all about this.
it's a big sci-fi adventure, kind of in the vein of Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor Ragnarok, that sort of thing. But the genesis of it was with Steve Levinson and Mark Wahlberg, and they came to Vault with the idea, and they wanted to make it into a comic book first. And so Vault came to me, and I co-wrote it with the editor in chief of Vault, Adrian Wassel, and we had a great time with it. But one of the things that kept coming up was we get trolled a little bit. This is just proof of concept for the film that's coming down the pike and all these things. And we really took it to heart that we wanted to make a comic book. We wanted to make the story a comic first for comic fans in the medium, using the medium to tell the best story we could. And whatever everyone else down the road wanted to do with it in other forms, they were they were going to do that on their own. So we concentrated on making a good comic. And I think it's unfortunate sometimes when you read these comics and they really just feel like storyboards or proof of concept for something else. And I totally get. Look, I understand the economics of comics. I'm literally in the midst of it right now. And nobody's getting rich off of single issue floppies except for maybe, Robert Kirkman or
Right. Exactly.
somebody. But even his, resounding success was fed a huge amount by the TV show Walking Dead. So it's not like he existed, he's just become this became this juggernaut in comics for comics.
Right, Oblivion Song isn't getting picked up if it's not for Walking Dead. I mean, I think we can all agree with, because it just got optioned for, that's his other book.
Right.
It just got optioned. I think anyone out there, I mean, can truthfully say that if it wasn't for the success of The Walking Dead, Oblivion Song's not getting picked up, because I
Yeah,
would imagine it's going to be a huge budget to pull this off. So
huge budget, and with his name behind it, I think they have a shot with it. But I guess that's all to say that we're not, sometimes we develop these projects in the hope that they do go to TV or film, and we really have the opportunity to make some real money off of it, and maybe move from like day jobs into writing full time, that sort of thing. So I don't begrudge anybody for wanting to do that. With that said, Drew and I with Canto really, really set out to make a comic book.
and
And I think
that's something that I really, really, truly appreciate, because when reading this, I don't not, when I go into an indie now, I actually go into it thinking, okay, how much are they trying? How desperate are these people to try to get a movie deal out of this? And like I said, there's no judgment, just like you said about not or doing that. Not once did I feel like you guys were trying to get a movie deal out of this. If anything, I feel like a video game developer needs to pick this shit up, because
hey,
this is
look,
fucking
video
dope.
games, films, TV, all of it. I think it would be amazing to see Canto in all sorts of different ways, But we really, really did set out, Drew and I, to make a great comic, a great adventure story about this little tin hero. And so it's been so much fun for me. I don't have a lot of experience writing comics, but it's really given me the chance. Canto has given me the chance to flex those muscles to think about what it means to turn the page and what you want the reader to feel when they see the last panel, on a page, and they turn it, and what do they see next? And taking readers on that emotional sort of journey through using the actual physical medium of the comic book to make the story the best that it can be. And Drew and I have had just a ton of fun doing that, for all these issues so far.
Well, you could really, really sense, and this is coming from a reader, that you guys really do have a lot of fun with this, and you do. There is a lot of soul that goes into this, and yes, the emotions there. It's very, very fun. Like the Malarex, I can't not look at the Malarex without giggling.
Oh, that's good. That's great, because we designed it. This creature is supposed to be this terrifying creature, and you have this one that's older and has sort of been around the block and knows the world and has this personality that he's like a really smart dog, right?
Right.
So you look at your dog, and you can see that he's looking back at you, and as soon as you turn your back, he's going to go get the treat. And he's manipulating, and he's thinking, and he knows, and he's solving problems. And that's the way I wanted this Malorx to be, which he doesn't speak. He just has like that guttural sound that he makes, and sometimes he growls or roars. But the reality is, everything that he is as a character is defined by how Canto reacts to him.
Yes.
And so, there's this one moment in, I want to say it's issue 4 at the beginning, when Canto says they're about to go into, this dangerous city at the gates, and they've got to meet the guardians there. And there's this 9-panel page that I love it so much, and I was so anxious about it not working, but it's 9 panels, and it goes back it's like the camera flipping from one point of view to the other. So it's Canto, and then it's the Malarex, and Canto is trying to get him to stay because he says it's going to be dangerous, which is ridiculous in itself, because you have this tiny little tin guy who's telling this giant muscle-bound creature to stay because it's going to be dangerous. But it's this 9-panel page where you keep flipping back and forth, and Canto's like, sit, stay, and each time you see the Malarex, it's just the same stupid look on his face. And then you turn the page, and it's Canto walking with the Malarex, and Canto says something like, look, I want you to know I think you understand me just fine. And the Malarex makes his trademark sound in response to it. And it's like, well, yeah, he does. He's just being stubborn because he doesn't want to let his little buddy out there and into the danger on his own. So that's been just a riot between me and Drew to try to figure out this Malarex's personality as defined by how Canto interacts with him.
Well, that's definitely something that I want to talk about here real soon is the collaboration and the connection between you and Drew, because you two obviously understand each other very, very well. But before I get to that, I kind of want to go back just a little bit to where it all began with you. Pretty much at the very beginning. Let's well, when was it that you realized that you wanted to get into comics? When did you discover comics? Was it something that you've always wanted to do as a kid, or was it just writing? Or let's start there.
I came to comics a little later in life, probably about 12 years ago now.
Okay.
And my first introduction to comics. So I'll go back. When I was a kid, the my family didn't really read comics, or it wasn't really part of my sort of universe. But I read Mad Magazine, and I had a subscription to Mad Magazine, and that's definitely cartoons. That's comics. So that was my experience growing up, and the Sunday Funnies page. I would read that, and I remember specifically that I always read the funny ones, so I never really read any of the. I can't remember now, but it was like the Tarzan ones, or Dick Tracy, or anything where it was sort of dramatic, serialized. I always thought
Gotcha. The Peanuts and the Garfields and the
Family
Family Circus.
Circle
Yes,
and Far
yes.
Side and that sort of thing. So it sort of was foreign to me that comics could tell sort of those dramatic stories. And so you cut to about 12 years ago. I started writing, and I wrote like fiction first. Nothing ever got published, and it was all pretty terrible. And then I started going to screenwriting and TV writing. I actually went to UCLA for screenwriting. They have a program over there.
All right.
And then I started going to San Diego Comic Con, believe it or not, as a pop culture nut, not necessarily a comics nut. And the first comic that I ever picked up and read, which changed my entire point of view about comics and storytelling, was Lock and Key
Ha.
by Joe Hill and Gabe Rodriguez,
Right on.
which is to me, it's just a masterpiece. And I like to say that, I like to tell people, it not only showed me that you can tell a story like that in a comic form, but that you can tell that particular story in comic form. And so it kind of it changed my entire point of view about how you tell stories. And so I had an idea, and I pitched it, and I did a first book I ever had was also with Vault, and Vault Comics sort of gave me, way back 5 years ago now, gave me my first shot at storytelling in comics, which I really, to this day I still appreciate.
And that was Powerless, correct?
That was Powerless. I had that idea, and I pitched it to them in an email, a couple sentences. And this was before they were Vaults. They were kind of a more artistic graphic novel imprint.
Okay.
And they were kind of in the background. I think they were thinking about launching Vault with single issues and focusing on fantasy and sci-fi. And I came in at the right place at the right time. And so that's how I got into comics. I've read a bunch, tons of comics since then. Really tried to absorb that these different creators are telling stories. And
What creators are you absorbing? To start out, who do I mean? Obviously, you're Joe Hill, but who else?
yeah, so there's a scene. So in the first issue, I want to say, of Lock and Key, it was kind of a Tom King. I like to say call it the Tom King sort of storytelling. It was
I like how he's got a whole style to his name now. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Of course, yeah, and I think in Lock and Key was this moment where it's one of the characters is sitting outside of the funeral, and just sitting on a bench, and it's a stack of these horizontal panels, and it's the same. The camera doesn't move, but there's this slight variation of movement of the character and people walking by, and then you see him sort of, I think he just puts his head down in his hand. You can feel the grief that's happening on the page, but that static camera angle to tell this very subtle but very powerful moment in the story, that stuck with me. And I think Tom King does that very well in sort of everything that he does.
Well,
He
I could
just,
totally sense that influence, and it's not necessarily that you're doing the static, non-movement panels between, but the silent panels that are depicting just the pure emotion without any dialogue or any need for any, even sound effects for that matter.
yeah,
While reading Canto, I feel that same type of thing, like it's the same but different type of
it's
situation.
something that I learned too along the way is letting the story breathe, giving it time. And sometimes it's funny to read some reviews and things that are like, the pace slowed down a little bit in this issue, and I just think it's because we're so we're so trained to have the pace be so breakneck all the time, and when you slow down and give Drew 3 pages instead of 1 page to tell this moment that's important. That's something I really try to do. So in issue one, if you hold the physical comic, there is a page turn where it's a full page spread, and Kanto's holding um, the tin girl who's been injured, and the slaves. Their line is, "If she can no longer work, the furnace is awake." And then the next page is just the black page, and it's just dialogue between Kanto and the girl. And then you turn the page again, and it's a silent page that's just Kanto sort of pulling the blanket over her to make sure she's comfortable as she's laying there. And you know that her time is running out, and that sort of thing. And we specifically broke out the dialogue from the visuals because and put it against this full page spread. So you look at it and you've got the so the dialogue, it sort of emphasizes the art just on the page before, and then you turn the page, and separating the dialogue from the art means that you take the time to read the dialogue, and then you take the time to absorb the art. Where sometimes we skip over artwork for the words. So there was a very specific way we wanted to tell that moment in the story to give it the gravity that it needed to have at that point.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, geez, you guys were methodical as hell on this, and it's something that it's not. I mean, I may be a little bit more than a casual reader, to be fair, but it's. I can imagine even the casual reader out there is to appreciate it. I mean,
Well, it's
let's
designed, it's designed for the casual reader
and
to.
really, though, and not just the casual reader, the absolute beginner of a reader. This is a total thing where if a family wanted to jump in and say, "Hey, let's find something that we could all read together." This, even though yes, there's sword swinging and stuff like that, it's not hyper violent by any means. So this is a
No,
comic
it's
for everybody. It really
yeah,
is.
yeah. So we definitely designed it to be in all ages, and I feel like I did some research on it, and nobody really has a set definition of all ages. There's some disqualifiers, swearing, really graphic violence, mature sexual themes, and sexual imagery, that sort of thing. That sort of disqualifies you from the all ages category. But beyond that, we, I, Drew and I both grew up with Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, Neverending Story, um, Turn to
Right.
Oz, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles,
Right.
Ghostbusters, all these things that have scary images and really change your how you interpret them as you get older. And that's a lot of the feedback we've been getting for Canto is that kids are reading it and they're really loving it, and parents are reading it and they're loving it too. They're getting something totally different. They're getting the underlying themes of like captivity and slavery and oppression and that kind of more adult aspect to it. And the kids are getting. We had a friend, a very wonderful creator, Philip CV. Um, who's got his own book out from Dark Horse called Triage, which you should go out and get because it's um, but he has his son Gavin. I want to say he's 9, maybe a little bit younger than that, and he drew Canto, and he gave him his own little dialogue bubble, and it says, "I'm Canto, I'm brave." So that's what he's getting out of the story, is that Canto is brave and he's going on an adventure, which when he gets to be 15 and he reads it, he's going to get a different, perspective on the story, which is something which we really try to do to make it appeal to the widest possible audience.
Well, you're nailing it. You really are. You really
thanks.
are. So I love that the fact you're inspired by horror comics, and then you've got this family book, but it just goes to show it's not necessarily the genre. You could pull something from something that's so different and create something. It's incredible. It really is. These are why I love these interviews, because it goes to show. I mean, there's a lot of aspiring creators out there that don't know when to start, or they're maybe intimidated. So these are the types of stories that I love to get. This is so inspiring. I'm sure for many, many, many people out there.
Oh, so, thank you very much. I think it's all about just finding story. If you're a creator, if you're a writer out there, just find the books that you have an emotional connection to. I read a lot of comics and I don't often feel that visceral connection to it, that it stays with me. But the ones that do are the ones, whatever genre, whether it's horror or it's sci-fi or it's, nonfiction, memoir. One of my favorite, probably my favorite comic from I think it came out last year, was this book from Fantagraphics called My Favorite Thing Is Monsters. Okay. Have you ever heard of this?
I've heard of it. I haven't gotten my hands on it, though.
A complete masterpiece from start to finish. And it's just because it feels different, and I cared for the characters, and it's different. It's different from Canto, but I just read it and I watch how the story is being told, and I take what I can from that to sort of make me a better creator, a better writer from that.
Oh, that's awesome. That's definitely something that I'm going to check. Anything that has inspired Canto is something that I want to check out, because I'm really not just saying this because you're on the podcast. I wouldn't be as excited to have you on the podcast if I wasn't excited for the book. This is something that I truthfully went in thinking, okay, I'm going to pick up issue number 1, see what something like this is about, because to be honest, the character designer for the little guy, I was like, that motherfucker's cute as shit.
I know, right?
But
well, I can tell you,
the whole thing was just incredible, and I was hooked from the beginning. And then, especially knowing it was just going to go 6 issues, hopefully just to start. We'll talk. I'm going to, wait for you to drink a little bit more before we.
I can actually divulge, because it was announced at New York Comic-Con.
Oh, well, that was one of my talking points. Is I specifically stayed away from the New York Comic-Con news until this interview. So now I'm going to actually get to talk about all this stuff, because I knew that you had an announcement to make, and I wanted to actually hear it for the first time, you telling me. So please tell me the good news about New York Comic-Con and Canto.
Well, Canto, his adventure continues in 2020.
Oh, man. So are we going to get an issue 7, or are we going to just say, okay, 1 through 6 is a standalone, now here's the ongoing?
Well, when you read issue 6, so we're doing this between 5 and 6, right? So issue 6 ends, I don't want to say ends, but sort of wraps up this current adventure. And there is a big question that is left open, and that's openly discussed in issue 6. And so what we're doing in 2020, I'll tell you, the trade for the first 6 issues comes out in March of next year. So March 2020, look for the trade. If you haven't gotten on board yet, you can pick up the trade starting in March. And then in May, there's going to be a one-off adventure that's basically a single issue that's called Canto and the Clockwork Fairies.
Oh
and
shit.
it takes place between the end of issue 6 and the end of this arc and the beginning of next arc. And it's a standalone. It's a one-off standalone. You don't need to know much, if anything, about what happened in the previous arc to just enjoy this little side quest, this little adventure that Canto goes on
Perfect.
with his Malarax. Um, and then in July, we're doing a 5 issue second arc that's going to pick up. I don't want to divulge too many details, but it's going to pick up where after issue 6, after this story arc ended, and going to tell the next story arc in this world. So it's going to be, we haven't made firm decisions, but I think we're leaning toward starting it at a issue 1, so being like a Canto 2 or a sequel or a second season, and starting at issue 1 and going.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
See, I enjoy that, and I think that's great for new readers too. You know, a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there that bitch. You know, why do they fucking reboot it and all this shit? It doesn't have to be looked at as a reboot or anything like that so much as a new volume. I don't
Well,
see why
you know what?
people complain about that.
Yeah, and from the peek behind the curtain a little bit, from a creator perspective, it's far easier to launch a number 1 of a second arc than it is to launch an issue 7. Because
Right.
just like you said, readers are scared away by issue 7 if they haven't read 1 through 6.
Right,
But
and when a book's gone into third printing, that obviously means it's hard to fucking track down because people want it, and when people want it, it's hard to get. And so
yep,
when something's hard to get, it makes you maybe necessarily want to skip it. So yes, no, I am 100% behind this whole notion of after so many issues reboot it. It doesn't even necessarily need to be a new creative team. God, please don't get rid of Drew Zucker.
oh no, no, no. We've co-created. That's one of the beautiful things about Canto. It's the first book that I've done where Drew and I are full co-creators on it, and um, it was going to rise and fall on my words and his art. There was no there was no option to go a different direction with art. This is our book, and it wouldn't. And if publishers weren't going to pick it up, we were going to do it ourselves. It was just we felt so strongly and so good about what we were doing that this will be our book for as long as Canto is still being, we're still telling stories in Canto's world. It's going to be our baby.
I love it, and it's IDW. They're not necessarily known for having creator-owned works. They're usually licensing out their other stuff. So what's it like being one of the few titles out there that's not a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or fucking GI Joe or Transformers?
Or
I
My Little
mean,
Pony or Care Bears.
exactly. What's it like being at the IDW label? I mean, what are
It's
those meetings
great.
like?
It's been great. I mean, they've given us so much opportunity to tell the story that we really want to tell, and the support that they've given us has been fantastic. And just having the IDW name, that's such a huge thing. This is for creators, IDW, Dark Horse, Image in particular, Boom, those shops trust those labels, so they're willing to take a chance on you. And so to be able to put IDW's name behind Canto, it was a one part of the perfect storm that we had very little to do with, to make Canto successful. So we had IDW. They actually had. It's been 2019 has been a big year for IDW and creator-owned titles, and
Seriously.
I think they really last year made a concerted effort to find titles that they thought would be successful to really make this push into the creator-owned world. And they had one book called Ghost Tree that went into multiple printings, Road of Bones that went into multiple printings,
Oh, that's
and
right. That
then
was IDW. Shit.
yeah, and it's the Road of Bones is fantastic. Rich Dueck is the creator on that, and so Canto came after those books. So I was starting to see early part of this year that there was some buzz out there about IDW's creator-owned books. So there was already like this existing narrative that was starting to take place that they're putting out some good creator-owned stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
then Canto comes out, and readers responded to that first issue.
Sold
So
out
just,
fucking immediately.
well, I mean, that was insane. Nobody knew that was going to happen.
Three
Nobody.
printings now? Three printings?
Yeah, dude. I 2 weeks before it hit shelves, it sold out of its first printing. So I don't know if the word must have started to get around. We hired a publicist and to come in and help us lay the groundwork starting in March when it was solicited. So by the time it came out in June, it would, word would spread. And even with that, there was some sort of lightning in a bottle. I don't know. I still think back and try to recreate it, and it's impossible. So
I heard about it 2 days. I heard about it on the Monday beforehand, and I thought, you know what? Just looking at this cover, I just the character design alone, I figured would be enough to spark interest because something like Canto. I mean, just the name, you think, well, that sounds like it's the name of this new thing I haven't heard of. But you would like to think, well, that this new thing you haven't heard of better at least fucking look amazing. And I'll be damned, it fucking looks amazing. So I saw it and I started hearing a little bit of hype and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna see what this is about. I went to my local comic book store. Just happens to be the world's largest comic book store at Mile High.
is that Mile High? Yeah.
Yeah. So I went up there and I grabbed I grabbed the book and they had a few and
Did you get the first printing?
I did. I did.
Okay. So I stopped in the morning. I still don't know what was going on, and I stopped in the morning in a shop called Quest, which is in downtown Los Angeles where I live. And they had a whole stack, and they pulled them off the shelf, and they're like, "Yeah, go ahead and sign them." So I signed them, and I put it back on this shelf. And I specifically remember thinking, "Oh man, that's a lot of copies. I hope they sell them. Gosh, what's going to happen?" And then I did a signing that Wednesday night at Collector's Paradise, which is in Pasadena, which is close to my house. And I came in, yeah, we had to pull the copies off the shelf because people were buying 4 or 5 and 6 at once, and they marked up the retailer incentive to like $50. And it was just from the 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. just to watch I didn't sleep for 3 days, and it was wild. It was crazy.
Well, anyone with a half a brain that read this comic knew that once you got your one copy, that if you were a speculator of any sort, you needed to go get more because you knew this was going to be big. Whether it got picked up for TV or whatever, it was going to be a hot comic. And I'll be damned if Mile High Comics, their every single issue is sold out. I think they have one copy of the third printing of issue 1. Other than that, 1 to 5 are sold out.
That's what it makes me so happy. So thank you to everyone who's listening, who's picked up a copy, because the normally it's from issue 1 to 2 is like 40 to 50% drop off. So lots of people try issue 1 and then you get half or maybe more to keep going with issue 2, and then you get another 20% drop off to 3. It's just been mind-boggling for me and Drew to see we're in issue 5. Doing a 6-issue arc for something that nobody's ever even heard of is really risky, because by issue 6 you could be down, you could be at the bottom of the barrel in the bargain bin. But to see that readers are still coming back, still going to the shop, still buying the copies, it's just been such an incredible thing for Drew and I to watch, because we've told this story as these 6 issues, and it makes me feel so good to know that readers are going to stick around to see what happens in issue 6, because we think that it's really, we think. I don't want to sound shitty about it, but I really think we stuck the landing in issue 6, and you guys can all be the judges of that. But I think
we will be.
Oh yes, thank you, internet, social media. I really think we wrapped the story up in a way that's going to be satisfying, and it's going to feel like it's the way it should be wrapped up.
Well, to be perfectly honest, even if you wrapped it up with the way issue 5 is, which I just fucking read like I don't know, half an hour before I got on the horn with you. Because like I told you before in the pre-conversation, I wanted to have this book as fresh in my head as possible. And I remember reading it at the end and just, fuck. Jesus, man. And if you would have
No
given it that
spoilers, right?
cliffhanger, I would have. Yeah, yeah, I'm usually not. Yeah, I don't want to spoil this one just because I haven't given a disclosure or anything like that. But, dude, that's
There's a cliffhanger.
for sure, for sure. And to be honest, just even after one, usually the journey between, in a 6 issue arc between, 2 through 5, a lot of times it's just set up to be filler. A lot of creators think, well, I got the beginning to catch them and I just need the end. No, no, no. Every single issue continues to make you more and more intrigued as to how the end's going to go, because you don't expect this wonderful world of creatures and just lore and all of this stuff that you're laying down. I'm telling you, I sense a video game out of this. I do.
No, I
Like,
hope.
I feel
Gosh,
like a Spyro fucking engine, and like that's really how I picture this, man. It's almost like a Kingdom Hearts type of feel to it, is what I get.
right? We
But
just got that reference in one of the reviews for Five. Somebody mentioned Kingdom Hearts, and I'm not super familiar with it, but apparently it's some part of it is about hearts and somebody putting hearts in their chest, and so I think it's interesting. Uh, we'll see. You know, if Disney's listening, maybe Kanto's part of Kingdom Hearts. Who
oh,
knows?
dude, get that Disney money, man. Is shit.
Not just. I mean, it's not just money, Brian. It's Disney. That's how I like to teach people. I'm like, it's not just money. It's comics money, which is
Yep.
like tens of dollars, people. It's tens of dollars.
Tens of dollars, sometimes hundreds if you're lucky.
If you're,
You
oh
got
my
to be one
gosh,
of the lucky ones.
the top 0.1%.
Yeah.
Here's your hundreds of dollars.
And that's one thing I really don't think a lot of readers really recognize, is the fact that to be a comic creator, you really have to go into this knowing that, for one, you're going to struggle your fucking ass off.
Yeah.
You are, and that's definitely something I want to touch on with you a little bit more, the struggles and the beginnings and all of that stuff. But I mean, there's very rarely any money in this. A lot of times, us as creators, we celebrate people like you. In my eyes, you and the Kirkmans and all of those, you guys are celebrities to us. You guys are the creators of stuff that I firmly fucking enjoy. And
Oh gosh, thank you.
well, yeah. But you guys are, like I said, celebrated in, comic nerds' eyes like myself. But you're not like Brad Pitt, where you're just cool. You do the thing and now you just fucking kick it. And I mean, you gotta
It's a
have a
hustle.
passion for
It's a
this.
hustle.
It
Yeah.
is. It
It's a
really,
constant
really
hustle.
is.
And for every, book that's like the Once and Future and,
I love
Wicked
that.
and Divine and, Walking Dead, there's, 100 behind it that don't that are great books, but for some reason don't get that spark. And um, you just got to keep doing it. That's the thing. You just keep doing it and find stories that you love and you really want to tell, and you just feel like. I mean, now I'll tell you the origin story of Canto is I knew Drew from social media, and I really admired his art, and he had done a couple of books. Um, and I just really liked it. So I reached out to him because I was going to do a short for an anthology a couple of years ago, and I wanted him to be the artist on it. Well, he was not available at the time. So I said, okay, well, if you ever become available, I'd love to work on something with you. And in a couple months later, I think it was, he became available and he sent me a preliminary character sketch of the character that would become Canto. And he said, "Hey, I've been working on this little this character and sort of a story, a broad story outline of what I wanted to tell. It was a lot darker and it was much more skewed, much more adult, leaned much more into Dante's Inferno. But as soon as I saw the character design, it was like a half a second that it took me, and I thought, Well, I'm telling this character's story, and I don't know what it is yet, and I don't know who this character is, but we're 100% telling this story. And ever since he sent me that original concept art, I just remember feeling so strongly that this was going to be something that I wanted to do. That it's been such a pleasure to work with Drew, and I came back to him with sort of my take on the story, which mixed in Wizard of Oz with some of the Dante Inferno elements, and came up with the idea about the world and how their hearts are replaced with clocks and what happens to get him on his journey. And Drew was down for all of that, and we pushed much more all ages. And as soon as we nailed down the character design and started getting artwork back, I just thought, I don't know what's going to happen with this book. I don't know where it's going to go, but I feel so strongly about it that we're going to do it no matter what.
Well,
so we just pushed forward. We just did it.
Well, we're all glad you did because I want to see. I would love to see this original concept art and how it differs from what we have now. Are we ever going to see Canto without a helmet?
That's a good question. The answer is unlikely.
Okay, cool. Well, I like that. I like that very much. That leaves a lot to the imagination. That's for sure. I think with this race.
I would like people to continue questioning, who they are and what they are, where they came from, their origins. And people have asked that question, and I think Canto is Canto.
I love
and
it.
To want to see what's under the helmets, I mean, maybe what you see is who he is.
Gotcha. Okay, no, I think that's a perfectly acceptable answer. I love it. Oh man. Regardless of helmet off, helmet on, this character, it has me. It really does. And like I say, I'm not saying that. Because just the fucking heart, you could sense it. It's one thing to just say, I want to design a character that, has something to stand for and all of this stuff and, go through all of these things. But you could tell this character, you believe it. You believe him. You believe his passion that you sense.
Sort of his naive courage when he goes out into the world.
Yes, absolutely.
He's just ready to face anything no matter what is out there, and he doesn't know what's out there, but it's almost like it doesn't matter because whatever it is, he's gonna deal with it and be scared and be try to be as brave as he can. But if he does, he has to go and do this.
I love it, man. I really do.
Thanks.
So, well, it's not just Canto that's dope, though. All of the character designs that we've seen throughout this have been fucking amazing. All of them. Everything from the creatures. How about, wow, what do they call the three? Oh, shit.
The Furies?
The Furies. Oh, my God, dude. That weaponry. Holy shit. Yes. So, okay, the whip and the... See, so my favorite panel, besides the end, where that holy fuck moment at the end, my favorite panel in this book, or sequence of panels, is when the Furies are fighting them, and it's this little fucker's ability to just duck and roll out of the way. Yes, there's violence happening, but you're not focusing so much on the violent attacks as you are as the evasive maneuvers, which in turn makes us, I believe this to be all the more reason for this to be considered a family book. At least in my brain, more focused on the evasive maneuvers than it was the actual violent swings that were going down as well. But
sure, and you look at
the action sequences and panels and designs of all of these characters throughout all of this. Holy fuck, dude!
That's just Drew doing his magic. I sent him. I would like this double page spread to look like this, and I fall into a little bit of the Marvel style of scripting because I know I am to just make it amazing. But you know what? That's the thing about you have to. We took a very realistic perspective about Canto. He's tiny and he's wily and he's brave and he can fight. He just was trained just before this moment to be a better fighter. But the reality is he just physically is no match for these horrible Furies. So what does he use? He uses his size to his advantage, and if that means being evasive and crawling around and just being a small target for them, then that's what he does. And that's one of the things we're going to explore in the second arc. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but Canto in relationship to those who are surrounding him, they're going to be. I'm trying to figure out how to say this without spoiling it, but they're going to use their size as a distinct advantage. We'll just put it that way.
All
in
right,
a way
no, I'll
that
take
you
it.
may not expect. May not expect.
I'll take it. I'll take because I mean, yeah, I don't want anything spoiled for me either. Let's be.
No, there's
I'm 100% into this story, and I love enjoying it on the basis that it's coming out. And I mean, it feels like it's coming out quickly. About every 3 weeks or so, it feels like the release is. Is that
I think it fluctuates slightly, but once a month. So there's an issue out every month. It just I think sometimes it was 3 weeks in between, sometimes 4 weeks. This issue 6, it turns out it's going to be 5 weeks because issue 5 came out a little bit early, or early October, so it was October 2nd. So issue 6 comes out in November 13th.
okay? All right. Well,
But
they say time flies when you're having fun, so that's probably why it feels like it's ending way too quickly. Because I really do feel like issue 1 was just a couple weeks ago.
I know I'm anxious to have it all out there, honestly. Yeah, and we made it a goal to make sure that it was on time. So we got everything we needed to get in. We got it on time, and IDW has been fantastic getting its shops on time. Because really, our priority is readers and it's shop owners, because the shop owners are the ones who decide what comics to put on the shelves. And one of the most gratifying things so far with Canto has been hearing from the shop owners saying, "I put it on the shelf and it sells. And all I want is a blank space where Canto should be, so that they can put some other book up there because it's all sold out for them. That's all I want for them."
Well, 100%, absolutely. And well, there is one thing I kind of gotta pick at just a little bit. Despite the fact, yes, this issue 1 sold out quick and fast, and that was despite the fact that it was impossible to find a clean cover of this book. And by clean, I mean one that wasn't crumpled by printers. And I know I kind of, I think I mentioned that on Twitter. No, by no means that has it, but that just goes to show. A lot of times when a new book comes out like that and it's not aesthetically pleasing and it still fucking sells out, that means, I mean, that's come on,
I guess
man.
that's really good. I haven't thought about that. That's a really good point. And
Yeah.
it's the perfect storm. So there's 9.8s from CGC. There's not too many of them out there. Few have been
and
able to press
even on issue
those
2,
crease.
it got
So
better.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
it's it just
Those
goes
those
to show.
problems have been rectified, by the way.
Oh,
So
I see that.
later issues.
I'm holding my 9.8 right now of issue 5.
Oh,
I would
except for
imagine it's a
the
9.8.
water spots. Except for the water spots from the tears, Brian, from the tears.
That's true, but you don't see that on the cover. That's at the end. I mean, no, it's not. There's nothing to cry about.
No, I'm perfectly fine.
Oh shit. Yeah, I'm loving this. So I said that we were going to touch on it just a little bit, but the struggles. I mean, you're a new comic creator. You've had a couple of things out there through Vault, and they took chances on you. So you're coming into, like I say, IDW, where you've got your GI Joe and your Transformers and your fucking Ninja Turtles, and you bring your Canto. Well, what were the struggles? I mean, were you one of the lucky ones that say, "Hey, we fucking just made it and we got lucky," or was there hate out there? And I don't mean to, pry by any means. This is more for, like I say, for the aspiring creators out there to know what they have ahead of them, because it's not easy by any means.
Yeah, I mean, everything since Canto has come out has been fantastic, but there's I've been going to San Diego Comic-Con for I think 13 years or 12 years now, and just meeting people, networking, not asking for anything right out of the gate. I think that's what a lot of creators make the mistake of. And I spent years building a foundation that I then relied on when we were ready to take Canto out. And so
So you're saying this was
that's
years in the I mean, years in the works.
well, years not. I mean, Canto itself has been, two and a half years in the works, but
Okay.
for a decade, I have been out there as a person and as a creator, meeting other people and building the network so that when a book came along like Canto, and I was ready to set it up, I had a list of 4 or 5 or 6 editors that I knew that I never asked anything from, but I just had been fans of what they've edited and the books they've put out. Like Skybound and Image and Dark Horse and Boom and IDW, just so they knew who I was. And try, I give this advice to new creators all the time. It's be the type of person that other people want to spend time with, want to hang out with, want to help down the road. And you can't do that when the first thing or the second thing or the third thing you ask from an editor you've just met is, hey, will you take a look at my book?
Thank you. Yes. Yes, because I've been a part of projects that have failed because I had partners that did not abide by those laws. And now I'm a podcaster instead of a comic book creator.
Oh man.
No, I'm not mad at it. Believe me, I'd much rather hear from the super successful and have these conversations like this than it is for me to fucking be some diddly little whatever.
I see that all the time. It's really unfortunate, but I understand from a creator's perspective, they just want to get their foot in the door. But everybody who's in this industry wants to help people that they feel like are their friends or that deserve the shot. And the creator they've just met who asks them for something is not their friend. It's not somebody that they want to see be successful. And with that said, I always tell the story. I have a good friend, Ben Bishop, who actually did the retailer incentive cover for Canto issue 5.
Ben Bishop, your good friend Ben Bishop, just name dropping. I've got his artwork behind me signed.
Do you really?
Oh yeah, no, I love Ben.
He's
He's a great
person.
He really
and
is.
The way we met is, again, just being somebody other people want to spend time with. I did my first ever table at a Comic-Con 2 years ago at Baltimore, and I came in there and I set up, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And right across from me, with this gorgeous banner with great art and all these beautiful books and prints and everything, is this dude in a beard and a baseball cap. And within 5 minutes of me getting there, he comes over, he's like, hey, I'm Ben. I got the table right across from you. And I was like, oh, hey, Ben. I didn't know who he was. Oh, hey, Ben, how you doing? And he's like, he opened this is so funny. He opened his cooler.
I've drawn Ninja Turtles.
I didn't know anything. And I was such a noob right then. And he opened his little bag that he brought and he said, by the way, if you want a beer during the show, I have them right here.
My
and I was like, dude, we are literally best friends within 5 minutes. And we just hit it off. And so when Canto came along, I sent it to him. I was like, the pitch to him, and I was like, what do you think of this? Do you think it's cool? I really love it. I want some outside opinions. What do you think? And he really responded to it. And I said, oh, well, I'm thinking about taking it to these places. And one place was IDW. And, he knows some of the folks over there. And he said,
well, a couple people.
Right. I mean, that's 2 years ago.
Right.
So, but he liked the material, and I like to think he liked me as a person. So he said, talk to this person. And it was somebody over at IDW, and I sent it over there, and, it was a good response. And then, I talk about this decades worth of networking and just being, a cool person to hang out with and that sort of thing. And the response I get back was, oh, this is cool. Let me send it to the IDW selection committee. And I'm like, oh no, this is going to be like, the Jedi Council is going to look at this and decide what yay or nay. I'm in. I got IDW. Somebody at IDW, I'm in. And
turns out you had all the midi-chlorians you needed, man. You're good to go.
No, they've sent it to the same channels that everybody else goes through. And I was like, oh, okay. And somehow it ended up intact on the other side. So I think we just got really lucky with Drew's amazing artwork and a story that people on the committee, must have responded to. So, with all that, do that networking and that sort of thing, but just, throw it out there and find out if it's gonna, the worst they can say is no.
Yeah,
So
well, absolutely. But I think really the moral of that whole story is just be likable around other creators and don't be a douchebag that just shows that your next step is to get a paycheck
right.
because
I don't know what conversations were had in the committee, and it could have been that, oh, Ben Bishop sent, you referred Canto to us, and we like Bishop, so we kind of trust what he thinks, and it's all a mystery to me, but it just goes to show, just be the cool person that other people want to see be successful, and I think that gets you 50% there, and then 40% more is a good story with good art, and then that 10% is just everything out of your control.
100%. I would agree. I would agree. That's awesome. It's cool that you guys, you and Ben have that connection like that. That's definitely someone that I look for having on the podcast real soon because this drawing blood thing that he's doing with Kevin Eastman, that's a conversation that just needs to be fucking had.
Oh yeah, and
He's killing it.
he just he's such an amazing creator and so generous with his time and support, and just, you know I can't say enough good things about Ben. He just has is become a really close friend to me, and just really thankful
Well,
to develop that relationship sort of out of coincidence.
Oh man, and yeah, well, it just goes to show, okay, he wasn't just nice to me. He is just a nice guy. Because when I met him at Denver Pop Culture Con. I went up and introduced myself, and this is when the podcast was, I don't know, fucking like 15 episodes old. So it was still brand new and fresh. And I'm Brian, and I have a podcast, and I like Drawing Blood issue 1 and all this stuff. Here's a sticker. Took my sticker, put it right on. He's got this big drawing platform that he fucking takes with him, that he's just doodling on while he's waiting for people to come up. Not like he's got to wait long for someone to come up and talk to him. It's Ben fucking Bishop. But he took my sticker, boom, right on the fucking front. And I was like, dude, that's so... When people come up to talk to
awesome.
Ben motherfucking Bishop, they see the Cheers to Comics sticker. That's so fucking cool. So
That's
yeah,
so
no,
cool.
yeah, I knew him immediately. I was like, I can't wait till this podcast is far along enough to where I have the nuts to say, hey, dude, come on the podcast. But I think at this point, I've had Drew Zucker on, or not Drew Zucker, David Booher. Drew Zucker's coming. I'm definitely gonna have him on.
He better do it, and then yeah, you need to get Ben on. Tell him I said he needs to come on the podcast.
I will. I'll say David Booher said, and yes, it shall happen. But this isn't about, as awesome as Ben is, this is about you, man. And Drew is gonna get his moment on this podcast too. This is
Awesome.
I want to this is all about figuring out where Canto came from, the inspirations, picking the brain of this, yeah, the one of the co-creators. It's nice. It's really cool to know that the idea was spawned off of a drawing and not the other way around. It's more often than not, it's a writer that comes up with something and they're just sweating their ass off trying to find the perfect artist for their vision. And it just so happened that you two met and the universe said, this shall be, and they will spend money on this. And
Yeah.
yeah.
It's been one of the best writing experiences that I've had. It's just developing this and working with Drew. We've gotten to be really, really close friends. I spent all of New York Comic Con basically with him, and he's out in New York City area.
Okay, and you're in LA, correct?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we're all on social media messaging, that sort of thing. And it's super easy now to be able to do that, but to spend time at his sort of hometown convention has been really special for me. So
that's awesome. That's so cool. I like to, usually I'll ask what's next, but it sounds like there's plenty of Canto to still be told, and I feel like this is just, if David Booher and Drew Zucker only created Canto forever, and you guys went on a run like, I don't know, say The Goon or something like that, where it's just Eric Powell creating this one thing forever, or something along those lines, I'd be perfectly happy with it. I really would, because I feel like this is a character that has a never-ending story.
Sorry.
Even if it did end in the sixth issue where he finds the heart and he gives it to the princess and or his friend. She's not a princess, is she?
No.
No, that's right. I was just all right. Yeah, it's the okay. I have a different reference in my head from the reading issue 5, the metaphor of the princess in the tower and all of that stuff.
Right.
Okay, yeah, yes. So, regardless, if he fulfills his mission here, we know that this little motherfucker has so much goddamn gumph in him. He's gonna find something else to solve and make good
Oh
and
man,
wholesome again. And
I can't wait until you read issue 6 and then this next arc we're planning. I'm very excited about it.
awesome. I can't wait. And like I said, usually I'll ask that question. Usually I have the question of if you were offered the job by the big two. But at this point, I don't want to see anything else from you. You have perfected this character. Like, I mean,
Well, what if the next thing we do, I do is even better than Canto?
well, I would.
It's not possible.
It's gonna be
right?
tough. It's gonna be tough. Good luck. You set the bar way
Trust me,
high.
I feel the pressure of failure is nothing compared to following up with any sort of success. So it's tough. It's still tough, but there's some things in the work. You can ask me the question. I have a very specific answer.
All right. Well, tell me. I mean, is there what's next after Canto, if anything?
There's some things in the works that I don't want to necessarily talk about at the moment, but the if I could do my dream book with the big two.
Oh yes, please tell,
It would
because this gives a good idea of the type of style that or the writing that you're really aspiring. I mean, outside of independent creating.
Right. So I will preface this by saying I've not read House of X or Powers of X, and I really am not up to speed on the current X-Men universe, but I want to do it outside of continuity, standalone story arc of Nightcrawler, but give him the quote-unquote Tom King treatment. So
Dude.
do it like Mr. Miracle or Vision.
Yes. Oh my God, what a perfect fucking Marvel may not be listening to this podcast, but I guarantee you are on their fucking radar with this book. I guarantee it. So
Well,
I truly hope that comes to light, because
if anybody's listening, I have the artists who I want to use that I won't say any names yet, but it's somebody who they couldn't say no to, and I have the story that I want to tell, and it would be really emotionally important story.
Well, Nightcrawler's that character that has this massive following that has no fucking solo stories out there.
Yeah.
And he's always looked at it as this B-list character, or not even B-list character. I mean, he's a fucking A-lister for sure. But he's always
look in a world full of
mutants.
In a world full of mutants, he can't pass. So, what do you do?
Yeah, man, that's.
I have some thoughts, Brian. I have some thoughts. So, anyway, that's what I would do.
That's wow. That was an answer that you wouldn't expect, and once again goes to validate my fact that you are not just your typical creator. You're not a run-of-the-mill writer that's just, oh, I've got this thing with this thing that needs to be told. No, you actually have something to say, and it's interesting, and man, you have a bright fucking future ahead of you in comics, man. You really do. I know you spent over 10 years building this network, and you have these 2 books through Vault. Now you've got Canto, which is in multiple printings. And the trade is sure to be a big hit when it comes. You said March?
March of 2020. Yeah.
March. Yes. Oh man. I'm glad I got this conversation in before you're too Hollywood to come on Cheers to Comics. That's for sure. Because you got a bright fucking future ahead of you, man.
Brian who?
Right. Yeah. What? Cheers to what?
Cheers to what?
Yeah.
Comics? Oh, comics.
Comics. I'm a fucking movie man now.
Never.
No, you could really tell that you do enjoy writing comics as a medium, not just using it as a platform to create a storyboard for something bigger to happen. This is truly a project of joy that I as a reader can sense. So
Right.
yes, oh man, I can go on and praise this book for another hour. I really could, but you're a busy guy. You've got Canto stuff to write, right?
I have that and and some other things on my plate. So yep,
Yes.
keeping
Well,
busy.
I I am actually very excited to know that you do have other stuff in the works for Canto, because a lot of times when a writer is putting out this quality of work, you don't have time for other stuff. So I'm very intrigued to see what else is out there, and I'm definitely gonna check out Alien Bounty Hunter and Powerless, because I've recently discovered how fucking kick-ass Vault as a publisher is. They're putting out some amazing shit. Resonant, all of that stuff. All of
Oh
these
my
small
God,
books.
Resonant.
Holy fuck, dude.
David Andrews' book. Ooh,
Dude.
that's yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so thrilled that I mean yeah. I know David and I know that story, and to see it um visualized in physical form has just been extraordinary to watch.
Well, I mean, you've got some big publishers backing you, man. Vault may not necessarily be one of those air quote big publishers, but regardless, that doesn't mean that the content they're putting out is not big.
Oh,
And
right.
it's
Oh,
everything
they're
I've
gonna
read has
get
been
there.
incredible.
Trust me, they're gonna
Well,
get there.
they
So
are. They're on their way to being Boom and Image and all of those. They and IDW and yes, yes.
yes,
Well, David M. Booher, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on this podcast. I've enjoyed picking your brain, and I like to think that the readers have definitely learned something about you, if not just yourself, but the route. One other potential route one could take is to being a kick-ass comic creator.
oh well,
And
thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, and it's it's just humbling to hear your response to Canto. So I really appreciate you sticking with us.
100%. And you will definitely be hearing about issue 6 when it pops off. You said I would imagine it'd probably be about episode 55 or 56 around the time that comes out. But you'll be tagged. You'll be tagged. Yeah,
Fantastic.
I definitely want to make sure well, all of the readers know that that this book is a thing, and yeah, oh man, I'm rambling at this point. The beers are working. I'm all excited because I got to talk to a kick-ass creator.
Awesome.
I won't keep you here anymore. I know you've got stuff to do. It's getting late. You probably want dinner and all of that good stuff. So, David and Booher, you have been a treat for this podcast, and we will be in touch. I'm gonna get a hold of a Drew here real soon. I'm gonna have a fucking illustrator on this podcast. I want to pick their brain too, especially knowing that this thing was spawned from a drawing, so that makes it all the more intriguing to me. So
Yes.
yes,
I
well,
thank you, Brian.
you're very welcome. We will be in touch, and you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. All you slurds, thank you for tuning in. Please support me on Patreon, and you know where to follow me. You know how to use the internet. You know where to social media and all of that good stuff. You got questions, answer or concerns, yeah, tag David. I'm sure he'd be happy to help you out. I think we've pretty much covered all the questions here, though, on this podcast. So save yourself the time. Just you've already listened to it. It's been a hell of a show. You slurs, read responsibly. Cheers, fuckers.
Hey, this is Ken M.
Padawan J.
Coach Duffy.
from the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour podcast. Every week, the ODPH is talking sports, movies, TV, comics, and more. It's always a parlay of topics on each episode. You can find the ODPH on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and wherever you find great podcasts, such as the one you're listening to right now. Don't forget to check out OchoDuroParlayHour.com, where you can find the links to all of the ODPH social media accounts, links to the bands whose music you hear each week on the show, hashtag 607 podcast info, and parlay points, our companion blog section of the show. Thanks for listening to the ODPH. Now get back to your regularly scheduled podcast.